Yeah, yeah. Live, stop the play. Steelers by the lake, with the word to say. James Strong, Cody Tanner, host on the mic. About to dive in deep, keep it live, that's right.
Welcome to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James Strong, joined once again by my co-host Cody Tanner. Cody, how are you on this glorious Sunday morning?
Oh, James, I am a little tired. Been a long week, whatever. But doing well, James. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Excited to get the day going nice and early. This is one of our early morning pods, so if we on, apologize, but it's not even 6 a.m. yet. So we're making sure we get this together to get it out to you people, because there's some things to talk about today.
There is. There may not be a lot of things, but there's some big things. Big things. James, before we go too far,
let's talk about our big sponsors, which is Edinboro Hotel Bar. Support for the Steelers by the Lake podcast is provided by the Edinboro Hotel Bar, serving a variety of lunch and dinner specials every day, including steak, seafood, Italian pasta dishes, and more. They're located at 100 Meadville Street in downtown Edinboro. Information is available at 814-734-5103 or online at edinborohotelbar.com.
Yep. Big shout out to Pat, the owner there, big time Steeler fan. It's a big time Steeler bar. When you walk in there, you don't question who they support. Let's put it that way.
No doubt.
So love that. I'll be over there probably for some preseason football games. There's going to be some good games out there because we have some stuff to talk about later. Before we talk about that, James, Steelers signed a handful of running backs and an offensive lineman recently. Very excited. I think that is at this point all probably for a third string running back position.
Yeah, honestly, like last week's show, we talked about how the tryout list of players had some significant people on there. Number one was Trey Sermon. I made sure to mention that. Trey was a former third-round pick from the San Francisco 49ers only 4 seasons ago at this point. And he made enough of an impact there that they signed him to the 90-man roster. In addition to him, running backs Max Hurlman also got signed. So they brought a couple running backs in to compete in this room. This is great news for anyone who's sick of Cordarrelle Patterson and his minimal effort last year and less results than the effort. That's a great sign for both of them. Sermon's got decent size, decent speed, some good NFL experience, and an incredible college resume. So I do think that Trey Sermon has a very legitimate chance of beating out Cordarrelle Patterson. And Hurlman, I understand, has a really good resume as far as a special teams guy. So I don't know how much he has in kick return experience, but it sounds like he's played a lot of special teams in his college career. So that was probably a big focus of what they were looking for in running backs, is somebody that they could make that swap out and not have to pay Cordarrelle Patterson $3 million to be the worst kick return man in the league like they did last year.
Yeah, Hurlman's actually a rookie from Notre Dame. He's from Pennsylvania, so that's exciting.
That is exciting. I don't know if you're real familiar with the offensive tackle Gareth Warren that they signed, Cody.
No, but I can familiarize myself pretty quickly.
I'll tell you what I know about him because I saw a little bit about him as he was invited as a tryout player. He's a mammoth dude. He played at a small school. He's a Hawaiian native. He's like 6'6", like 325. Arm length is actually pretty good, 33 and like 3/8, which is not bad at all for a tackle. Got a lot of experience at left tackle. He's played some guard as well. I saw a lot of highlights of him. And honestly, dude moves really well. And I was impressed with his technique. He did a really good job of like shielding off people when he was executing his block. It wasn't like all arms like you see with some people. He was using his body to position in between where the hole's supposed to be for the running back and where the defender is. There was a lot of pancake blocks. And when he did, he immediately moved on to the next level to try to find another guy to keep on going. So I was really impressed. Now, again, small school guy, mammoth size. His competition was nowhere near as good as what he's going to see in the NFL. That being said, it's the prototypical size, length, and already some good technique that should allow for him to have a serious competition for one of those backup offensive tackle positions with some flexibility to be able to play guard too, that they love to see that. He could end up pushing to be that number one backup offensive tackle. So I think this is low-key a really exciting player that they added out of this tryout camp.
Yeah, and listen, there's some potential for trickery here because in his collegiate career, especially this last year, he did have one offensive reception for 6 yards. So
Boom.
keep that.
I love me some tackle eligible.
Yep.
Banner was an exciting player back when they had him a few years back. I'd love to see this huge Hawaiian do some of that Zach Banner stuff.
Yeah, so very excited to have another. Listen, that's the one thing I will say. The Hawaiian, whenever you get that Hawaiian talent or that ethnicity on, like Troy was that, Hines was, like, it's always a fun time getting these guys on the team. So I love adding another one. Troy Fotani was the same way.
Jalen Warren also with some
Jalen Warren. Yep, that's why he does the S for Samoan.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely love that, James. Excited for those players, but even more excited for the Steelers now knowing their schedule.
Heck yeah, man.
So we're going to run through this real quick. I'm going to run through preseason really fast just because it's the entire NFC South outside of the Saints. We play week 1 of preseason on the 9th of August it's a Saturday at 7 p.m. against the Jacksonville Jaguars at Jacksonville. Week 2, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come to Pittsburgh on 8/16, another Saturday 7 kick. And then week 3 is 8/21, August 21st, Thursday night at 7 p.m. against the Carolina Panthers at Carolina. So that's going to be the preseason schedule. Excited to see that. James, now it's time for the fun part, regular season.
In Panthers, that was the old tradition. We always finished up the preseason with a game against the Panthers. So that's fun to have that back again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun Easter eggs with this schedule, man. I think there's some real similarities to last year. Where we see it not as difficult at the beginning of the season and a lot more difficult at the end of the season. But we're going to break this down week by week for you. And I think the NFL is kind of giving you a little foreshadowing as to who they think the Steelers starting quarterback is going to be based off of who we've got week 1. So we go to New Jersey to play the New York Jets week 1. That screams them thinking Aaron Rodgers is going to be the starting quarterback for the Steelers.
And if not, I mean, Justin Fields should be starting for the Jets.
Yeah, absolutely will be. And there's storylines galore in this. Fields is going to be highly motivated to try to show that Pittsburgh made the wrong decision in letting him go and not paying him what he wanted to be paid. Rodgers, if he does sign with Pittsburgh, which the later into this process it goes, there really aren't too many other options or really any other options for him. If he wants to play, it's pretty much with Pittsburgh. He's going to be highly motivated to show that the Jets were just a bad team. And it's not that he's declining in his career, which most people think is the case. So I think that's a really exciting opening game, Steelers versus Jets. I wouldn't have been very excited about it. But for the storylines of the quarterbacks and the potential quarterback that Pittsburgh could have, I think it's a really exciting opportunity to start the season off with not the toughest team in the world, but still a good check because they're going to want that win bad.
Yep, and that's kind of goes right hand in hand with week 2 is against the Seattle Seahawks because DK Metcalf facing against his former team in Pittsburgh. So that's going to be very exciting. The last time Seattle came to Pittsburgh, I was actually at that game. That was a few years ago. So that's been a hot minute, but that's very, very, very exciting. I was with our good friend Noah, friend of the podcast, Noah, who's going to be a dad soon. So that's very exciting for him.
So that's I agree with you again. The NFL being very cognizant of certain things within the team matchups. Get that matchup against DK in early in the season. Seattle will be pumped up to try to prove that it was a good move to move on from him. And DK is going to want 300 yards receiving and 7 touchdowns.
Yes, he is.
And I pray to God that whoever the quarterback is that's starting week 2 is ready to just pound it to him, man. Just force feed DK the ball that week, because I think you're going to see at least once, if not twice, in that game a running play that goes DK's direction, where he takes the corner and just jacks him up and just takes him 20 yards on a block.
Yep.
And I'm here for it, man. I'm very excited about that potential.
Yeah, week 3 is another away game at the New England Patriots. No crazy storyline to this one that I can have processed. And so far they're all Sunday 1:00 kicks too.
Yeah.
So that's nice because it changes very quickly in week 4. As Pittsburgh travels to what is it? Brazil? No, it's
Ireland.
Ireland,
which may feel like a home game with all the Steelers fans in Ireland. So
yep.
That's going to be an interesting one going against the Minnesota Vikings, as I'm sure you were about to say. Minnesota has a game in England the week before. So they're already going to be in Europe, and they'll probably be fully
See, that's a wild thing, in my opinion, that no team should have that advantage of already being accustomed to the schedule difference.
And that's what Jacksonville did last year, right? Jacksonville was in Europe 2 weeks in a row. There's no point in coming back to the States in between. You might as well stay there, practice while you're there. Europe's a big enough place. They can find places for you to stay. They can find places for you to practice while you're there.
Yep.
So I expect the crowd to be in favor of the Steelers, but there to be an advantage for the Minnesota Vikings as far as rest and being accommodated to the time schedule difference. A 9:30 a.m. kick, Cody. Can you imagine that?
Yes, I'm going to have to not be at church that week.
I was going to say, you're going to have to do that Saturday evening.
Yep. Saturday evening, I'll be at church because it won't be Sunday morning.
Sunday morning ain't really happening.
And then so real quick, let's not linger there too long. The next week is my least favorite part of the entire schedule. It's a bye week on week 5. Hate it.
I want you to speak your word on it first, and then
my word is I hate when we get a bye week this early. The benefit is so often Pittsburgh struggles in the beginning of the season, and then they kind of pull their head out of their butt after the bye week because they wait until the bye week to do any major changes. The only benefit this has is if there's any glaring issues the Steelers have, this is the time that they'll make those changes. If we were still having these issues week 4 and our bye week was week 12, they'd wait till week 12. And that's the annoying part of just the way Pittsburgh's been the last few years. It drives me nuts. But that is the one strength of this bye week being that early.
I'm with you 100%. That's exactly where I was going to go. I hate there being a bye week this early. The only good thing is that, A, you're coming off of your game in Europe, so you should be able to get fully reaccommodated with your schedule back here on the East Coast. Also, like you just said, if things are not going smoothly, I think very strongly here that, like Derek Harmon, for example, I think is going to start at the beginning of the season. Week 1, he'll be the starting defensive end opposite Cam Hayward in your base defense. And I think he's going to play a lot as a nickel defensive lineman. Caleb Johnson, on the other hand, I don't think is going to be the week 1 starter. I think Jaylen Warren will be. But this is going to allow 4 weeks of split carries between those two guys. And if Caleb Johnson is very clearly outshowing Jaylen Warren, that's an easy transition to move to him after that. Yep. Also, we look at the quarterback situation. As of right now, we still do not have Aaron Rodgers, so we're assuming Mason Rudolph is the starter. If Mason struggles those first 4 weeks versus those opponents, which are not the toughest opponents in the world, the Vikings coming off of a very, very good season. So we got to give them credit, right? They won like 14 games or something last year, 15 games.
And then they got rid of their quarterback.
Yeah, they were really good. If we're struggling offensively and the quarterback position isn't going well, whether it's Aaron Rodgers because he signed or whether it's Mason Rudolph, this is the opportunity to switch your starting quarterback, which you don't normally get that early in the season. So if you feel strongly enough that Will Howard has a better chance than what you're seeing on the field, you could see that possibility, that changing week 6 against the Browns.
Yeah.
And I think this is a real big thing here because there's some projection in this starting lineup right now. We don't know who wide receiver number 2 is going to be yet. Is it going to be Robert Woods because he's big and he's a good blocker? Or is it going to be Calvin Austin III because he's a better route runner and he's fast, but he's kind of a casualty blocking? Or is it going to be Roman Wilson because he's kind of a hybrid between those two, but really hasn't been on the field much? This is going to allow for a lot of adjustments offensively and defensively, and maybe even nickel corner too. You never know. Like, we assume Beanie Bishop will probably be the guy. Maybe one of these other guys looked good in preseason, but they didn't want to throw him in yet. There could be a lot of changes, starters offensively and defensively during this bye week. That is the thing that I like about it, but I hate that there won't be a break for these guys later on in the season. That's going to be a tough one. This is the closest to the rookie class getting a legitimate break. You know, they always talk about the rookies being such a grind, playing your season, preparing for the combine, preparing for your workouts, and then going straight into rookie mini camp, all the OTAs, and an actual full-fledged camp. They'll get a little bit of a rest there. So maybe that might help those rookies not hit that rookie wall as early in the season too, which I think is going to be really important for Derek Harmon. So I'm mixed on it. I don't like it that early, but I think it could benefit Pittsburgh in a season where there's a ton of question marks to make big changes early on to make a big push in a season that could be very pivotal.
Yep, I'm right there with you. And then, so obviously you said the next game is against the Cleveland Browns at home, another Sunday 1:00 kick. The following week is a Thursday night game, so we will have only 4 days between those two games. Thursday night kick at Cincinnati. So that'll be kind of the second tough transition time-wise. Followed by a Sunday night game home against the Green Bay Packers. Another interesting game if Aaron Rodgers is the starter at that point or at all. And then followed that by another 1:00 kick the following Sunday against the Indianapolis Colts. Indianapolis Colts have a chance to be a potential threat. Week 10, another Sunday night game at LA Chargers. So that'll be West Coast. Pittsburgh traveling across the country to West Coast to the Chargers to play them. And then followed by the Bengals again with another 1:00 kick the following Sunday at home. We travel to Soldier Field and Chicago the following Sunday to play the Bears. And then back to Pittsburgh to host the Buffalo Bills at mid-afternoon 4:25 kick the following Sunday. And then we get into December. So December is kind of where things get interesting. Baltimore Ravens at Baltimore, 1:00 kick on that Sunday. Then we have a Monday night game at home against the Miami Dolphins, followed by a mid-afternoon game in Detroit on the following Sunday against the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions are going to be a tough team. I'm excited that's that late because I want to see what we can do. Full offensive scheming, full defensive scheming, hopefully healthy. Real excited for that game, in all honesty. And then the following Sunday, week 17, a 1:00 kick at the Cleveland Browns. And then we have a home game against Baltimore that does not have a day or time yet, which will depend on how if it's two teams fighting for playoff spot or not, that'll change where they put that game.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Cody was talking about, you notice that probably about week 11 versus the Bengals and possibly the week before versus the Chargers, depending on how good the Chargers are this year, it's when it really starts ramping up. I would argue even the game against the Colts could be bad because the Colts have been playing us very tough the last few years. In fact, kind of out physicaling us the last
They
few
beat us
years.
with Joe Flacco last year.
Yeah. So definitely not a team to be underestimated, but that's week 11 is where most people are putting the mark on it when you start talking Bengals. The Bears are expected to be drastically better. Bills, one of the best teams in the AFC. Again, Ravens, one of the best teams in the AFC. Dolphins are competing for a playoff spot every year. The Lions, maybe the second best team in the NFC.
Yep.
Than the Browns. That's the only game that isn't the most difficult one in the world, and finishing up against the Ravens. So it's a very, very difficult end to the schedule, but at least the break in between games is significantly better with only one Thursday night game. So Pittsburgh doesn't really have any short weeks, which is a benefit to them. But it's tough at the end of this schedule, man. There's a lot of tough teams, and I would argue mostly all of our toughest opponents are after week 11. So Pittsburgh's really going to have everything figured out at that point. They need to be firing on all 4 cylinders if they expect to finish, get into the playoffs, and actually make some noise in the playoffs and win a playoff game for the first time in 7 or 8 years now. So it needs to happen. Pittsburgh has to do this. It won't be easy. They're going to have to earn it. Yeah, there's some real tough opponents at the end of the year. It'll be entertaining to see week 17 for the Browns. They might be doing something crazy like a quarterback change at that point, because I don't think there is any clear-cut QB1 going on in Cleveland right now.
Yeah.
Between Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, are they really going to keep 4 dudes? I don't think anybody's going to want to trade for any of those guys, so they're not going to be able to do that. That's going to make them thin in other areas on the roster. So it could be, their season could be over at that point, and they could be throwing some new guys out there that there's not much tape on professionally.
Yeah.
So that could have some challenges there where you could have a quarterback that's never played in the NFL before starting that week.
Yep. It's going to be a very interesting schedule. Once we get through training camp and maybe midway through preseason or after 2 preseason games, we'll give you guys our predictions for the Steelers win-loss record, and we'll go through the schedule again that way. But James, that's going to wrap up today's show. Can't thank you guys for listening or watching. Remember to like and follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Subscribe, ring the bell. It's free. Doesn't cost you a thing. Don't forget the 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Make James very, very happy. And until next time, this is your host, James and Cody, signing off.
Peace.